Hey all, so the green custom grips are off of my 638, so you know what that means. It's going back. Now, if you like this content, like, sub, shares, all that good stuff, I really appreciate it. Also down below, coupon codes and merch helps for the channel. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of backstory and then move into what's going on now. Longtime viewers of the channel know that I've had a lot of trouble with Smith Wesson revolvers and their quality control to the point where I won't buy the new ones anymore because they just can't seem to put out something that's consistently good, at least not, in my opinion. Put down below your experience with modern Smith & Wesson revolvers. I'm always curious to hear other people's opinions because whenever I do these videos, I get a lot of people that come out saying that they've also had issues, and it's always interesting to hear about those issues or not issues. So I've done videos on this before, covering the issues and covering the process of getting them repaired. And again, I think I've had them send back 3 different guns. 2 of them I had to send back twice because they didn't get fixed right the first time. And then it comes to this little 638. And I've always joked how this was one of the only Smith & Wesson revolvers I never had to send back. That basically it was seemingly fine from the factory, at least in tolerance from the factory. Push forward 10 years later, again, I bought this brand new like 10 plus years ago. And I've noticed a couple things about this gun. So I was refreshing myself on things to look for buying used revolvers, because there's usual stuff I can usually remember, but I like to do a refresher. There's some very good videos online talking about all the different finer points of checking timing and all that and making sure somebody hasn't slung it around and all that. Anyway, after refreshing myself, I said, hey, you know what? Since the day I bought this gun, the cylinder has always been tight to release. So what I mean by that is I will push in the cylinder release all the way forward, right? And then I'll go to pop out the cylinder. So you can't really see, but I'll go to pop out the cylinder and it pops out, but it's always stiff when it first starts, right? So it'll be like, you have to give it some effort. And I don't know if you can hear it squeaking there, the metal against metal. But when I first bought it, I just kind of figured, oh, maybe that's just how it is. Again, this was my first Smith revolver. But since then, I've owned several, and they all pretty much open really smooth. I've got Colts, I've got Rugers, I've got other Smiths, and they all open really smooth. This one has always been a bit sticky. So I started looking it over, again, going over, thinking, hey, I'll give this a look over as if, I was going to buy it. And I started realizing that, and I'll show a close-up picture here, but the back plate of the frame right here, there's an awful lot of wear. Now, a little bit of wear is normal because, of course, you've got the pin from the ejector here dragging against the frame. So a little bit of wear is normal, but it's really excessive. And I confirmed this by asking some people online who also confirmed that they thought that was very excessive. And that the little hole here for where the cylinder release, the little button comes in to hold the cylinder in, is wallowing out because there's so much pressure being exerted on the back of the frame from the pin right here as it grinds against the frame, making a drag mark. Again, a drag line is normal. That's a bit excessive. So I then started checking other stuff. One of the things you check is the crane and its fitment to the frame. So look at that right there. And again, I'm putting a close-up picture, but that doesn't exactly mate up really well. I checked it against a bunch of my other revolvers because, again, these are mass-produced, so you don't expect me to be perfect. But no, it was definitely out of whack compared to some of the other stuff I owned. So I started realizing that what's probably been the reason the whole time is the fact that the crane was probably poorly fit or there was some kind of issue. And again, this gun has never been Hollywood or Cowboy or anything. And when I reference that, I mean people, be like, oh, you load it up and you slap it closed, and that's very bad for guns. Don't do that. But basically, that can cause issues. But this has never happened to this gun. This gun, while it is kind of beat up and kind of used up and whatever, it should be perfectly mechanically sound because it's been taken care of mechanically. Again, the frame's a little beat up, but that's what you expect when it rides in your pocket or on your ankle for 10 years. So honestly, I've realized that one, if I keep shooting this gun and using this gun in this manner, that eventually this on the back here is probably going to wallow out to the point where it probably won't be a safe lockup. I did, again, asking a few people online that know a little bit more about the internals of revolvers than I do. A lot of people mentioned that what can happen is the ejector could start unscrewing. So some of these guns, what happens is when the ejector starts unscrewing, right, the star, and then this start expanding out a little bit, and that can cause a tight fit. I actually had a Smith & Wesson revolver that did that constantly. Ended up getting rid of it because I even tried Loctiting it, and eventually it came loose. It just wasn't worth it. That has not happened with this gun. It's been like this since day one. So at this point in time, put down below, I'm curious, what do you think I should do with this? So I've actually been selling off some of my Smith & Wesson revolvers because I'm just kind of over it. Again, when you have to send stuff, for instance, that 29 in that case back there had to go back twice for issues, and that's one of their, again, $1,000 classic series guns. You just kind of get sick of it. There's other opportunities out now. Again, when I bought this little J-frame 10 years ago, the new Colts weren't out, the new Kimbers weren't out. You had this, or I think the LCR. The LCR was out at that point, but I'm just not a huge fan of the polymer stuff, although it's perfectly good, especially for something that you're just going to use. But this is going back to Smith & Wesson. I'm going to see what they can do. I talked with the woman on the phone, which I have to do another video on them not covering replacement of a frame. That's another story, and I have to talk to the person that happened to get their more input and get their go-ahead to do the video. But long story short, Smith & Wesson hung up on me. But I have already talked to them about this. I'm going to send it in, and they swear to me that their replacement, or not their replacement, their repair process has gotten better. That guns very rarely ever come back a second time, which the only reason I have a little bit of faith in that is because the woman did admit that used to be a problem, that Smith & Wesson stuff used to come back a lot a second time, but they've really worked on fixing that. In other words, fixing stuff right the first time. But I am curious to see what they do with this, because with that wear that's on the frame, ideally you're probably going to have to just replace the gun, because if that keeps getting any worse, again, it's going to affect the lockup to the point where I bet if you just pushed hard enough, right, and I'm not going to do it because I don't want to put stress on the gun, but eventually you'll get to the point where you push hard enough, I imagine this will just pop out. That's not what you want, especially when you're firing a gun. So that's the issue to my little 638. Again, the last little Smith & Wesson revolver that I never had to send back is going back, and I honestly, if they send me a replacement, I might just sell it, even if they send a replacement that's brand new, because frankly, it sucks to own something for 10 years, and this has really been a fond little revolver of mine. And again, custom dyed grips for it. I've got like 4 or 5 different holsters for it, pocket holsters, ankle holsters. I've even got shoulder rig, variety of different things for this gun, speed loaders, again, different sets of grips. I've customized it with the grip tape on the back. I've painted the sights. I've really done everything I can to make this basically mine. And, to know that basically this defect has been lurking in this gun the entire time, which I guess it was my fault, because when I popped it open, I just thought, oh yeah, it's new, it's stiff, it's whatever. But I mean, again, after handling other Smith & Wesson revolvers and other brands in general, and realizing, no, actually, usually revolvers open pretty smooth once you've depressed the cylinder release. Kind of disappointing. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Smith & Wesson quality control, it really makes me sad. They're a good American company, or they used to be. And, there's a lot of models I'd love to own from them. Before I bought my Kimber K6S, I was really looking at some of the scandium framed, J-frames, in 357, thinking, hey, you know what? This little 638 is nice, but how about a lighter 357 mag? That'd be a nice little gun. But again, if I do this other video, I'm going to talk about, somebody had an issue where basically their frame cracked, and Smith & Wesson, well, let's just say they didn't plan on fixing it, despite the fact that it was a defect. But yeah, put down below what you think I should do, and have a good day.